Hello everybody, and in today's video we're going to be reading A Ghostly Presence by the world-renowned author, the man, the myth, the legend, Rayan Sami. The mansion was dark and gloomy. The curtains were ripped and torn. An empty fireplace stared with sorrow. The mirrors were cracked and shattered. A shadow lingered near the window. The candles went out. The shadow shifted away from the window and sat on the rocking chair. It rocked back and forth, creaking. The telephone rang. After a few seconds, it stopped. Beep! Hello. I've called to see if you can move into the house next week. Is that okay? The creature reached for the telephone and rasped. Yes, it will be perfect. I'm sure you'll enjoy your stay. It stroked the hair of an eyeless doll which lay on the shelf. A picture of a girl and her parents fell off the table. The glass cracked and shattered. The night was dark. A mist had formed above the swampy meadow. It looked like a jungle. A car bumped up the gravel path to the long, crooked house at the top of the rocky hill. Robert groaned. This can't be it, Dad. It can't be. Look at this place, complained Alice. Mr. Stein stopped the car. Alice, you should be thankful. I'm really lucky that my Uncle John left me this mansion in his will, he said in a calm voice. Honey, how do you know this Uncle John? Asked Mrs. Stein. I don't remember him, but I'm sure we were close. Why else would he have given me this house? Finally, he parked and they approached the mansion. The gargoyles stared as if they were trying to warn them of something. Someone was watching from the window. As Mr. Stein opened the door, the grandfather clock struck 12. They ate in silence, trying not to taste the cold, stale pizza. When all of them had finished, Alice and Robert ran up to the second floor. Let's take the two big rooms so Mom and Dad will have to take the smallest room, Alice whispered mischievously. Robert nodded, smiling for the first time in days. Robert couldn't sleep. It had started raining and his windows hadn't been boarded up properly. He was wet. He started crying. He missed his old friends, his old schools, and even his old teachers. Mr. and Mrs. Stein didn't even ask for his opinion. Thunder struck. Ah! He heard a long shriek. He got out of his bed and grabbed his torch. The door creaked wide open as he left his room. Each step was careful, deliberate. The wind howled. It was the only sound he heard above his heartbeat. Slowly, he pushed the door open. Alice, are you okay? He whispered, trembling. I can't sleep, she said in a quiet voice. Her hands were paler than usual. Robert edged towards her, clutching the long white dress that she was buried in. Suddenly, he was pushed to the door, a few feet above the floor. Alice turned her head. Her eyes were white. Her lips were blue. Her face was as pale as an albino python. Robert Lawrence Stein, what a disgusting name, she rasped in a hoarse voice. With all his might, he pulled his arm away from the door and threw his torch at her. For a split second, she let go of him, but Robert didn't waste any time. He dashed through the empty hallway, all the way to his parents' room. But when he entered, they weren't there. He scanned the room for anything that could explain their disappearance. But to his horror, he saw a pale hand sticking out behind the bed. He edged towards it. Two bodies lay there, lifeless. Their bones were broken. Their eyes were pools of darkness. Their mouths were open in horrifying screams. Their hearts were beating, and their blood was cold. Robert backed out of the room to the corridor, shivering. The lights flickered. They'd become a dark red. He turned, ready to face whatever had possessed his sister. She was waiting for him. "Who are you, and what have you done to my sister?" Robert asked, keeping his tears at bay. She started to hover. "My name is Jane. I was an orphan. One day, 2 horrible people adopted me. They brought me back here and treated me like a slave. I did so much for them, but I still wasn't enough. I was hit and whacked until one day they had enough. That day they treated me so nicely and gave me delicious food, better than the scraps they usually gave me. But they had added poison to my food. I pleaded and begged to put me out of my misery. That death was so painful. But they did nothing. All they did was stare and laugh at my pain. My body was lifeless, but my soul denied to death. I haunted them and I killed them. I got some of my essence back, and I took a human-like form. Day by day, I kept losing energy, until one day, another human opened the door to my mansion, and he slept here. That was the last night he could live. I killed him in his sleep, and I got more of my essence back and became more lifelike. So I will continue calling families and killing them until I am whole and have a solid form. Then I will seek my revenge against the rest of mankind," she shouted. Robert ran to Alice head first. She fell to the ground. Robert saw a shadow behind her. "Save me, Robert," she whispered with tears in her eyes. The shadow dived back into her. She got up. All the candles lit on fire. They tilted and pointed at Robert. Then they launched themselves on him like 100 missiles about to end the world. Robert dodged all of them, except for one. It hit him on the arm. He thudded to the ground, screaming in agony. He got up. Blood was leaking from his eyes. His bones cracked and twisted. "Help," he whispered. That was his last word. Then she lifted her hand and clenched her fist. Robert fell to the ground, staring at Alice with his empty eye sockets. Alice thudded to the ground, revealing a shadow. It hovered over the bodies, making them disappear. All the doors of the mansion slammed shut, and the shadow sat on her rocking chair. Next to her lay a shelf full of eyeless dolls. Suddenly, the phone rang. A few seconds later, it stopped. Beep! A woman spoke. "Hello, I've inherited this house from my uncle, John. I plan on moving there next month. Is that okay with you?" The shadow reached for the phone. "That is perfect. I'm sure you'll enjoy your stay," she answered sinisterly. The end. Or is it? I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell icon if you want to be notified when a new video comes out.